bye, 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 bye.
I know I'm a grifter, strong man. You could lick your hand and smack me in the nutsack. Thank God for Tesla, my Esla, and you, strong man.
Well, this video is about real estate. Meet Kevin and Graham Stephan, but why not just play a LaFufu intro? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, why not? It's always funny.
Anyway, welcome. So today we're going to talk about real estate investing, bro. And I hear that you have some kind of expertise, like you bought a rental property and lost all your money or something.
Yeah, that's happened before. Yeah, I work in property management, and I own rental homes as well as I manage for other people as well.
Cool. So I guess we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. Is it easy to become a millionaire with real estate investing? Is it just the get rich quick hack?
It's easy to have $1 million in real estate if you're looking for debt. That's because the way it's not going to be a get rich quick thing. It's going to be a wealth building thing over the course of a mortgage and paying it off. So it takes decades.
No, so I watch plenty of YouTube channels, and there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of, I think they're scams and grifts. There's a lot of channels out there that say you could be a millionaire in like 5 years, which I guess is theoretically true if you ignore your liabilities, because you could buy a house for $1 million. And if you don't count the debt, the loan that you took to buy the house, you're a millionaire. Isn't that right?
That's exactly right. But the debt will crush you if you're not careful. And it's very easy to get crushed by debt when you're starting out in real estate, especially if you only have 1 or 2 properties.
So if I wanted to become a real estate investor, right, what are some of the pre-qualifications? I need to have a certain amount of cash, credit. Like how would I actually get started in real estate if I wanted to?
It depends on the situation and what you're trying to buy, basically. I do mostly residential, so I can't tell you about commercial. But you either need to purchase your house cash, which is what I recommend you do on your first one. And I'll tell you how to do that in a little bit. There's a few tricks you can do because you can't just go and buy a house at market cost with cash. I understand that. Or you need a co-signer that has, preferably one that has experience in real estate, because the bank's taking a huge risk for someone that's starting out. Those are really your 2 options. And I really recommend buying it cash on your first one, but not at market cost. You've got to get some way for your first property to be well below market cost. What I would recommend doing, and this is what I did for about 10 years, there's a HUD home program where they'll sell to owner occupants. You have to live there a year and a day after you buy it, but you can buy it cash. And as long as you live there a year and a day, then you can do whatever you want with the property. You can sell it, you can rent it out, whatever. And then you can repeat the process. But because they're not looking to make a profit, they're selling on what the loan amount is. Like, say it's a VA loan that was foreclosed on. So you can get, there was one property I got for $26,000. It was a 2,400 square foot house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. It needed a new roof and it needed new air conditioner. But after I bought the house, what I did was I took out a loan from the bank for the property so that I could pay to get the air conditioner and the roof fixed, did a few other improvements, then used the extra money a year and a day later to repeat the process with another home.
So these HUD homes, are they mostly in like low income areas, I would imagine?
Not really. There are some that are in low income areas, but they're my area is a little bit different than a lot of the country. A lot of them here are in middle income, but sometimes you have some upper income ones, especially if it's a VA loan. But I'd say they're low to middle income mostly. But at the same time, when you're renting houses, that's kind of your bread and butter of the market you're targeting is middle and lower income.
Now, tell me about the competition, because apparently it seems like everybody and their mother wants to get into real estate. I guess it goes in cycles. Like sometimes people just everybody loves stocks, and then everybody seems to love real estate at certain points. How much competition is out there, and how does that affect your profitability?
That's a great question. Right now, there's a bunch of people jumping into real estate that have no experience and no idea what they're doing. That's usually a sign that things are about to crash. And I guess we're already seeing it. But there's out of town investors that are calling me up asking about houses and like, should I buy this? And they sight unseen. They don't even go look at it. It doesn't make any sense to me. The excitement. But yes, it is cycles where like that's just how it is. Now, one thing is with the property management side of it, that seems to be consolidating. There's less and less property management companies than there were in the past. And they tend to be getting bigger and bigger. But in terms of the investors, yeah, that seems to be spreading a bit.
Okay. So basically, to get your first property, you maybe consider getting like a HUD, living in a HUD property, live it for a year or whatever. And then, you can renovate it and then start renting it out. But like, what kind of other requirements are there to buy your first property? I mean, in my opinion, I've never bought a rental property, but I've done plenty of taxes for people that have rental properties. And I see them spending lots of money, lots of dollars on big capital improvements, repairs, all that sorts of stuff. Do you recommend like a cash cushion when you potentially venture into this? And how much do you think you need in cash if that's a requirement?
Yeah, I definitely do. I guess it really depends on the property, but the two main things you got to look at when you're buying a property is how old is the roof and how old is the air conditioner. There's other things like structural damage or water damage, but that doesn't come up a lot. Those are your two main things that you should definitely check out. A roof is approximately, in this area, it's about $15,000, and an air conditioning unit is going to run you probably about $7,000 to $8,000. You should always plan to spend more though, because when you're buying an investment home, it's usually without an inspection, so you never know if there's like the toilet was leaking on the floor and rotted out a section. You just never know.
Yeah, I'm actually, because when I bought my home, this beautiful house I'm in right now, I was paranoid about freaking, damages. So I got a really good inspector, and then I had him come again like 6 months afterwards and inspect the house. Because you can't imagine, some of the stuff that you're going to miss. Because most people that are getting into real estate, I think right now, to get rich quick, they have no idea what to freaking check in their house. So I think it's an absolute, requirement that you pay an inspector. And maybe if you want to really mitigate your risk, maybe pay another one, to also inspect the house. I mean, do you normally do that? Or is it just like you kind of know what you're doing and then you just have the inspector come and that's basically it?
I would recommend anyone that hasn't done real estate that they hire an inspector. I personally don't have an inspector usually, but usually I'm buying foreclosures or things well below value. And so, it's as is. And I've got a bit of a cushion since I have more than one property. If you only have one property and something goes wrong with that property, well, that's it. Like that's, that's your income stream is destroyed. You still got to pay your mortgage, your taxes, your insurance, and well, good luck. But I've been doing this for a while, so I kind of know what to look for in terms of water damage and how to gauge the age of a roof and all that, and how to look for termites, those types of things.
So basically, you got to start off, like you said, HUD home, or buy your house in cash. And then you have to have a pretty significant cash cushion, because if you're buying some of these, properties and you don't necessarily know how bad they could be, you might have to replace the roof, the HVAC, do all these freaking repairs. And I've seen bills, tens of thousands of dollars in repairs that these people are doing. And it's really sad to me, because you go on YouTube or you go on all these other scammy websites and you're like, oh, bro, just buy real estate, bro. And they're appealing to people, it seems to me, that really have nothing. So what are some of the potential catastrophes that could happen if you're just this, let's say you work a $40K a year job and you don't really have much cash and you decide to get into real estate? Like, what is your chance of success, number one? And what are some of the catastrophes that could happen?
Well, your success rate wouldn't be very high if you don't have a significant cash cushion. If you're taking out a loan to buy your first rental, they'll probably make you personally sign for it. Even though you should have your rental property in LLC, you still have to personally guarantee it. So you're risking like your entire net worth on one house. And a lot of people are scared to get into real estate because they're like, what if something catastrophic happens with this house? What if I lose money? Well, there are times you're going to lose money, and you're going to lose a lot of money. I'll give you a great example. If you have insurance, it does not cover sinkholes. Now, where I am, I'm in North Florida, South Georgia. Sinkholes are a real thing. And if a sinkhole hits your house one day, oh, well, not covered by insurance. Good luck. Like, there goes your entire investment right there. You can take out extra insurance for sinkholes, but surprisingly, it's not required. You have a lot of risk. There's a lot of stuff that's unseen. I'll give you a great example. There's one rental house I had. It was going great for years. Then all of a sudden, the hardwood floor started buckling. I got to looking at it, and it turns out over time, since it was built in the 50s, it's warped the floor. And so now I have to replace the entire floor of the whole house. That's just not something you plan for. And if that was my only property, then I'd have to sell it at a loss, basically. Another problem you have is you have professional squatters. What they'll do is they'll see a vacant property. They'll forge this paperwork, say they paid this guy off Craigslist a deposit. And then they've got this, it's fake documentation, but you still have to go to court, and they'll extort you for money so that you'll pay them to move. This is more prevalent in states that are heavily tenant rights. It's not so much in Florida and Georgia. So I don't see it much here, but it has happened, and it's just infuriating. You also have the risk of a tenant just completely destroying your unit or your house or whatever. And, you would think, well, that's okay. I'll just sue them. That's okay. I'll just garnish their wages. It doesn't work like that. You can, in theory, but a lot of times, they don't have enough that you can garnish. And also, if you don't take the proper steps, they can legally trash your house, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you don't make them sign in, say, a move-in document saying what was right and what was wrong about the property when they moved in, they can trash it, and there's nothing you can do.
So, yeah, and that's one thing. Like, the reason I don't have any rental properties, I don't want to deal with stupid tenants. Like, I can just max my tax advantage accounts. I can work on raising my income, and I'm not distracted by dealing with clowns. So to me, it's just too much hassle. Now, circling back just a little bit, tell me more about financing, because my only experience with real estate is buying this house that I'm in right now, and I got a 30-year fixed VA loan. So if you're just starting off and you want to finance, what options do you have?
It's very tough. Your best bet would be, what I would recommend is, if you haven't done real estate before, find someone that has and make an LLC with them. Because the bank will be more likely to give you loans since there's experience there, especially if you haven't done commercial loans before.
Is it getting worse? Because interest rates obviously have gone up massively. The interest rates for 30-year mortgages now are insane compared to
yes, they are.
So
I haven't taken any loans in a while. What I did was, when the interest was low, my banker actually said I was one of only 2 people doing this, but I took out the 15-year loans when interest was low so I could pay it off as soon as possible. I guess I do have some that I'll have to renew soon, but that was my strategy. The bank looks at a lot of things. If you have a distressed property, they ask you, like, how much are you going to spend to fix it up, and what exactly are you going to do, and what are the estimates, and what do you base them on? But usually it's not a problem if you're buying property below market value. This is the biggest mistake I see people make, is they buy property at market value, and then they wonder why they lose money. It's because you're going to have expenses that you didn't think of. You're going to have your hardwood floor buckle. You're going to have your HVAC go out. You're going to have to replace your roof at some point. And if you bought it at market value, well, like all you're doing is increasing with inflation. You're not really making a gain there unless you're looking at the super long term. But if you buy it below market value, then that's where you get your savings, because you can get tens of thousands with just a little bit of work and sell it or rent it out.
Yeah, so tell me more about, so this is what I'm really curious about. And like, from my observations, I mean, I haven't done like an in-depth analysis of profitability, but I've seen plenty of rental properties that have losses for a long period of time. And a big part of that is depreciation, obviously, which everybody thinks that's like a magic deduction, but it's really just recovering the cost of the property that you bought, because you're paying the mortgage. The interest is deductible, obviously, but the principal payment is not, but you're kind of getting that through the depreciation. So like talk to me about profitability. Like what bottom line profit, at least from a cash standpoint, do you think most people can expect to get from real estate?
I hate to say this, but it depends on the property. To go back to what you said about cash flow, there's a common trap that a lot of new investors fall into. Basically, if there's a bunch of low income properties, what people don't realize about real estate investing is that turnover destroys your profit. And if you have low income properties, you have higher turnover. So a lot of times there'll be an experienced investor that has like, I don't know, a quadruplex and rents it all out to new tenants. And then it's full. And then you look at the cash sheet, it's like, wow, this is making lots of money. Well, yeah, and then they sell it to someone that's new. And then like two of the tenants move, boom, now you can't cover your mortgage, your insurance, your taxes. You get all these repairs. You got 2 units trashed. I mean, that's kind of the trap there. So the cash flow, the better cash flow isn't always the best thing, because you got to consider turnover rate, which costs you more really than repairs. Having an empty unit, well, you're not making any money there.
Yeah, and that can be absolutely disastrous. And funny you say the quadruplex. There's like this low income housing. It's like this random quadruplex right next to our neighborhood, and it's more of like lower income people. And I remember my wife like briefly mentioned, she was like, hey, maybe we should buy that. And I was like, oh hell no, because I can't imagine, like you said, the turnover, because vacancy is huge. Like you said, if you're not renting the property, your amazing passive income cash flow is freaking gone. It vanishes. So I was like, honey, I think we're going to stick with our IRAs and 401ks and let somebody else deal with that rental property.
Yeah. That's why I manage mostly single family homes. I manage some duplexes and some quads, but the low income, it's too much work with not enough money. It's just not worth the hassle.
Well, so I've always heard that the most profitable rentals, I could be totally freaking wrong. Like I said, I'm not an expert on renting houses. I've always heard that low income housing is like where all the profits are. Is that true, or is that just complete BS?
So let me guess. They were trying to sell you some low income houses?
No, you can try all day to sell me a low income house. I'm not buying it.
There's some truth to it. I haven't found it to be true personally, because like I said, the turnover just eats you alive. It's kind of like this. There's a big disconnect sometimes that I have to explain between the real estate investors that I manage for and the tenants. Sometimes at these low income properties, it's nothing personal. They just lose their job and they don't have the rent. And that's it. All you can do is get the keys from them and put it back on the market, and that's it. The owners say, well, how come they don't like dip into their 401k? I don't understand. Why don't they use their savings? It's like there are no savings. They don't even have next week's money, and you can't garnish them because they're out of a job now. It's just better to move on, get the property back, and try to rent it out again.
So what income bracket do you think is the ideal bracket, if you want to get into this, that you would potentially target? Like middle class, upper middle class, Richie Rich? Well, Richie Rich probably pays for their own houses. What are you thinking about the bracket to target?
I would say low middle to high middle.
And how hard is that? I mean, like, do you think like, so most real estate, at least from like what you observe from your work, I mean, what kind of properties are most of these people scooping up? Are they scooping up the same ones that, you're talking about now, like, lower middle class, upper middle class, something like that? Or are they doing something else?
You know, oddly enough, they seem to be focused more on the lower income and the upper income, which the upper income's fine. Your profit margins aren't much, but like I said, there's a lot of people that haven't done this before, and so they don't understand the turnover and the cost of that in how it affects your profit. I mean, that's just everything. It can't be understated.
Yeah. So what do you think about the real estate market overall? Because like in my opinion, this is my unprofessional opinion. The pandemic started, interest rates were low, and I was like, I need to attack now because what's going to happen is house prices are going to start to go up massively, and before you know it, now the government's going to have to respond because everything's getting too expensive, inflation is starting to rear its head, and at some point there's going to be massive interest rate hikes, which we're living through right now. So, like, what do you think about the current market? Because in my opinion, especially right now, it seems like home prices are still high and interest rates are high. So to me, buying a rental property right now is probably the absolute worst time you could possibly consider getting into real estate. What do you think about the market overall?
I would tend to agree. I sold several of my properties during the pandemic because, I mean, they were sky high, and I bought them undervalued. There is an element, though, that's interesting. Right now, there's not a lot of new construction, even though there's a huge demand for homes and there's a huge shortage of rentals, especially. I must have like 50 to 100 people a day come in my office trying to rent, and they complain that everything has a deposit on it already, and they can't rent it. But you've got this is a really weird time because you've got a bunch of lumber tariffs, so wood is still high. And you're right that interest rates are high, and it slowed like some of the buying power, especially for occupied homes. But there's not a lot of new construction. Is the argument? That's I guess the bull argument for real estate. But I don't really try to time the real estate market. What I do is I just buy a house that's undervalued, fix it up, and then just let it appreciate.
Well, how do you know that it's undervalued?
I work at a property management company, and the primary benefit I get is I can look and see what the rents are in pretty much every area of town. I can see what rents fast. I can see what areas have the highest turnover, which areas have the lowest turnover, etc.
So do you use any like ratios? Because I heard of like price to rents, or I guess price to I don't know what the freaking terms are. Do you have any kind of like ratio that you specifically use to kind of identify a property that you think could be a winner?
I do not, because there's too many variables in terms of unknown repairs and stuff. Like basically just estimate what the rent is, estimate what the taxes and insurance are, put it at, let's say, 90% vacancy rate, and see if you can meet your mortgage, taxes, and insurance, and then go from there.
So is 9% like a decent vacancy rate, or is there a rule of thumb? Like if it's lower income, it should be this. If it's middle, it should be this.
The bank will assume when you go out for a loan and they're looking at your financials, they'll assume an 80%. The occupation, like they'll assume that 80% of your properties are occupied, regardless of what they are. They'll still want to see the cash flow and the rent roll and all that, and chances are it's higher than that. Hopefully, it's higher than that, because 20% is like a lot to be empty. But the bank uses 80. I just use 90.
Okay. So another question I have is a big part of, like I said, my fear of real estate is the time requirements, because it seems to me your options are you can handle your own property yourself and do most of the maintenance and blah, 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 blah. And that might save you money, but it swallows up your time. Or you could do a property management company. But the disadvantage of that is that's another freaking bill. So, I mean, if you're going to be a real estate investor, I mean, what do you think's the best way? Should you go all in and, just try to run your empire yourself? Or do you think it's better for most people to do property management?
I definitely think you should do property management. Not just because I manage properties for a living.
Oh, and you could, by the way, my property management company is this.
But you should definitely have a property manager. because chances are you don't know what you're doing starting out, especially when you talk about legal proceedings. When a tenant's late, what's the proper procedure? How many days do you need to give them after you message them before you can file them? How do you file them? How are you going to take off work to represent yourself in court? Okay, and when the judge rules in your favor, how are you going to remove the tenant's stuff and put it by the road and make sure you do it the legal way? It's just best to have a property management company. Plus, if you have any repairs or something, the property management company should have workers' comp, which is something that a lot of people overlook. Workers' compensation protects you in case anyone gets injured on your property repairing it. And you may say, oh, well, what are the chances of that? Well, if it does happen, you go before a judge who makes his money from these workers' compensation policies. So he's not going to be too sympathetic when you say, well, I just didn't have workers' compensation because it costs a lot. That's how he makes his money.
Yeah. So what do you do specifically? Because you work in property management. Are you still contracting that out to a property management company or your own company, or the one you work for, or are you mostly doing it yourself?
I'm a little bit different because I have a property management company, but we have workers' comp, and we have some employees that are maintenance that are hourly, and some that we contract out, especially if it's something like air conditioning, plumbing, or electrical.
Okay, so you kind of do it within your company.
Mm-hmm. As much as I can.
Yeah, because but that's the thing. How much do property management fees normally cost you, and how much do they eat into your profitability? Does it make it super hard to be profitable now that you're paying property management on top of that?
Oh yeah, it's typically 10%. It does make it pretty hard to be profitable because your margins aren't that high to begin with. I mean, it is tax deductible because a lot of people use real estate as a tax shed, but still, that 10% hurts. That's your property management companies. Yeah, unless you've had that property for a while or it's paid off or something, it's probably going to make more than you are from that property.
Yeah, that's my other concern. It's okay, my options are I can do this full time almost because I deal with all these clowns, and fix my own stuff, and there's all this risk and stuff I may not know. Or I have to go ahead and pay a property management company, and they're making a freaking killing off me, and my bottom line profit's bad. And the worst thing of all is a lot of people don't realize that rental properties, unless you meet very strict requirements, fall under passive income rules, where you cannot, if you have a loss on your rental property, depending on your circumstances, of course, and your income, and there's a ton of stuff that goes into it, but you potentially can't use that to offset your ordinary income. So what happens is you just have all these suspended losses that get carried forward into the future. And then at some point you can use them to offset income in the future, but you're not reducing your
in 30 years
thing.
or
Yeah,
27 and a half.
That much money.
That's exactly right. So when you buy a new property, like you were talking earlier, if it needs a new roof, it needs a new AC unit, you have to deduct on the maximum. It's the same as the house. Or if it needs some structural work, well, that's money that you're not seeing for a long time.
Yeah, and another cost people don't factor in is tax fees. I mean, that's just something else. People have to tax because I have to do it. I mean, it takes freaking forever. Sometimes people drop off all these receipts, and you got to dig through them and separate them, and then you have to look at, do we capitalize this or not? And it just takes a lot of freaking time. So on top of all the crap that you're dealing with, you have to factor in property management and tax preparation. And then the worst thing of all I've noticed is people think, you can, just appreciate your property and then you can just sell it and then you get this massive gain because real estate goes up and blah, 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 blah. Well, you also get what's called recapture, because what the IRS does is when you depreciate something like a capital asset, when you sell that, they were generous enough to give you a deduction on your taxes for depreciation, but it's not a free deduction because when you sell it, you basically, to keep it simple, you pay higher tax rates than a capital gain tax rate on all your gain that came from depreciation. So even when you sell the property, you're going to get a massive freaking tax bill, higher than you could possibly expect. I mean, have you ran into that before where you had a bigger tax bill than you thought?
Oh, yeah. It's happened before. Or it's wow, I did so much work this year on these properties. And then I realized, oh, wow, it's it's all capital expenses. I can't deduct it.
Yeah, it's a huge freaking pain. And like, it's just sad to me that people don't understand this. They go on YouTube or they watch like Robert Kiyosaki or whatever that freaking clown is. And like, oh, just buy real estate, bro. And then they have all these like spreadsheets and like, see, well, your home's appreciated 3% per year. And, eventually you depreciate and you get all these losses. And then before you know it, you're going to have this massive real estate empire. So why would you buy stocks? Because stocks only go up like 10% per year and you'll be a millionaire when you're 60, when you can just buy a rental property, bro. That really pisses me off.
It does. And also, going back to that, a rental property is not liquid like a stock is. I mean, you're stuck with it. If something goes wrong, well, you still got it. You can sell it. That's why I do single family homes mostly, so I can sell them individually. But if you're doing like an apartment complex, good luck with that.
Yeah, and another thing, like you said, so let's talk more about selling a home. So I've seen plenty of like closing statements, because you actually have, when you're doing the taxes, you have to look at the closing statement. Mm-hmm. And you have to figure out, well, what are the net proceeds? Because you have a selling price for a house, but you also have all the expenses. You have commissions, blah, 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 blah. And to actually get the net profit from that sale, you actually have to, kind of subtract those. So when you sell a house, tell me, like, on average, how much, as a percentage maybe, how much you're paying in fees or like costs, like commissions and all that.
I guess about 12. That might be a little bit high, but about that after the.
Yeah, it seems to be like 8 to 12, something like that. So even you buy, and here's what pisses me off. So they're like, strong man, why is you have this house and it went up $50,000 in value? Why don't you count that in your net worth? Well, it's like, guys, think about this. How am I going to get the money out of my house? I either reset my mortgage basically with a home equity loan, or I freaking sell the house. And when you sell the house, like you said, it's extremely illiquid. I mean, maybe not in a hot market, but number one, you have to sell the house. Then you have to move out of the house and buy a new house. So all those gains that you got are probably offset by the price that you paid for the new house. And you're paying massive commissions, fees, tax stamps just to freaking sell the house. It's just utterly ridiculous to me that people think this is just like, an easy way to wealth, and you should just your home's value should be counted in your net worth.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And the saddest thing of all I've noticed is when you look at like retirement statistics, like the average net worth of the average American family, most of their net worth is in their primary home. And because of the aforementioned disadvantages of that, you would have been, even if you have rental properties, okay, I still think you'd be better off putting the majority of your money, into stock or, index funds and tax advantage accounts, because, I mean, it's so hard to get the money out of real estate.
I would totally agree. If you're not fully committed and working as a real estate professional and doing it full time, which is not easy to do, then you would be better off doing what you said. Exactly. Use tax advantage accounts and just buy VT. Especially since it's easy to get ripped off in real estate. It's very easy. Excuse me, just a second.
Your tenants are calling.
I'll give you a great example. This is something that I don't see talked a lot about on real estate channels, but it's the biggest danger you face. It's working with contractors. If you don't have something in writing about when the job is supposed to be done and what's supposed to be done, well, they may never complete the job, and there's nothing you can do about it because technically there's nothing in writing. And then they may say, well, I demand payment. And here's what a lot of people don't know. At least in my state, a mechanic's lien, which is basically work for unpaid work on a property, and they put that lien on the property. A mechanic's lien actually takes precedence over a tax lien. It's the only type of lien that gives precedence above the government. And so this isn't just like a casual thing. But if they put that mechanic's lien and they can make a claim and you've got nothing in writing, well, oh well, it's their property if you can't pay it.
God, that just scares the crap out of me. Because, like, I've saved money for the last 10 years. I'm, building my wealth. And then I just can't imagine, like, buying my first property. Because I have the ability to do it if I really wanted to. But I'd probably have to sell some stock, which would be stupid. But it just terrifies me to think that there's so much stuff I don't know. And, just to go and, buy a property and just hope it all works out because cash flow, my ash flow, and real estate goes up and it's easy, bro. You'll be a millionaire. And then just to get some massive bill, like, oh, by the way, the roof collapsed, and one of the workers that was fixing it got hurt, so now you're liable for his bills. And oh my God, dude, it's just it scares the crap out of me. So I think most real estate investors who know what they're doing, I think they got some big balls because there's a lot of risk that goes into it that people just do not understand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's
calling. They somebody said they need to get a light bulb fixed.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Is sometimes you do have tenants with unreasonable demands. See, we're responsible for common wear and tear. So over time, if a cabinet door, like the hinges come off, okay, we got to fix it. But if they come off because they got slammed or something, well, that's the tenant's responsibility. And a lot of it's real hard working with some owners because the profit margins are so small that they try to be as cheap as possible when it comes to getting things fixed. Like the toilet will be leaking at the bottom, and sometimes they don't want to fix it. Now, I mean, this is really bad because water is like a fire. It'll destroy a house. The only thing different is that you hear about a fire faster. But that water damage is like an iceberg. You can only see 10% of it, and it'll spread quickly. Now, typically, if someone is really bad about doing repairs, I'm not going to manage one, in the contract or whatever, because the way I see it is, a lot of renters, their biggest bill is probably rent. Let's face it, and therefore they deserve good service. They deserve a good place to live, and they deserve quality, and they deserve to be respected.
Man, you're probably one of the few nice property management companies. Actually, like every time I've rented, I hate renting. I love owning, even though a home comes with massive expenses that people may not consider. Obviously you have to replace everything yourself. But the renting part, it's like you have this like overlord that's over you, and you don't know if they're going to treat you well, or you don't know if they're going to screw you on the move out inspection.
Yeah,
it's freaking terrifying. So it's kind of nice to see there's at least you're saying it. There's some nice property management people out there that, aren't going to screw you over.
Yeah. Well, something that I found confusing is, have you ever watched Meet Kevin's YouTube channels on rental properties?
I have not, but we should dive into like them specifically right now. So tell me about Meet Kevin.
All right. See, a lot of people ask if we do credit checks. The short answer is no, because the reason most people are renting is because they can't buy a house for one reason or another, and they don't have good credit. It's just what you check is proof of income and rental history. If those two things are good, your tenant's probably going to be good. Nothing's guaranteed. Well, on Meet Kevin's channel, he brags about how he won't rent to anyone with less than a 700 credit rating. Like, what does that do to the pool of potential renters? 700.
So my question is, Graham's, a big rental guy, and Kevin's a big rental guy. Are they geniuses? Were they born and started investing during a good time? Like, what do you think really helped them, become successful? Was it more luck or was it more skill? Just based on what you hear from what they say.
Kevin's father has a property management company himself. So obviously he helped him co-sign, which there's nothing wrong with that. Like, hey, that's the game. And Graham Stephan is actually pretty savvy. He got his start like operating cameras for other real estate agents and doing videos and drone footage. It was a service that was a niche that a lot of realtors don't know. Graham actually is a lot more impressive. But both of them, their real talent isn't real estate or how to do it. It's marketing. They are really good at selling themselves. They make millions from their YouTube ad revenue in a year. That's their product.
Why? Why can't I get that?
Everything else is kind of a little bit misleading, and they're both a little bit out of touch because they'll have like how to buy your first rental property, and then it'll be meet Kevin with some triplex in California that's $675,000 that needs $120,000 worth of work. Okay, like most people don't have the access to that type of loan, and and also if they did, imagine buying. Imagine tying up nearly $1 million when you're just starting out in one rental property. What if it burns down? Oh well, because right now you have a big problem when there is like a fire or something at a property. Yeah, okay, you get some insurance money, but that insurance doesn't come close to the replacement cost now that we've had inflation.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, I don't think they're frauds when it comes to real estate. They probably know exactly what they're doing. But to me, it almost seems like they just make it too easy. And, they have these real estate investing courses, which probably teach a lot. But even with all that, there's just all these freaking massive corresponding risks that we talk about. At the end of the day, I think most people are going to fail, in my opinion, at doing this. And when you fail at investing in the stock market, which I don't know why it's hard for some people to not buy an index fund. When you fail at the stock market, as long as you aren't doing margin, or like selling options, the worst it's going to go to is zero. You lose all your money on a stock. Okay, well, you start from square one. With a rental property, you might find yourself in massive freaking debt. Massive debt. And you might be screwed for life.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a huge risk. That's why it's recommended you have an LLC, so at least if something happens, like you've got some protection.
Yeah, and even with LLCs, it's like, oh well, they have this thing called piercing the veil. Like if you start intermixing your personal life with your LLC, then they might be like, oh well, you pierced the corporate veil, so we're gonna go ahead and take all your assets anyway. It's like, oh god, I can't stand this stuff. Yeah, I think you got big balls, dude. I respect you for doing all this because it ain't something I want to risk doing. I'm not a risk averse guy, but I'm very cautious with my investments. But I understand that you can become a multimillionaire with hundreds of thousands of cash flow every year at some point with real estate. But it takes way more work than people possibly imagine, and the likelihood of success is much, much less.
Exactly. Like the last housing bubble in 2008 wiped out a lot of real estate investors in this area. There was one guy that he had over 80 properties and he lost them all because he was over leveraged. And when that hit, it just put him underwater and he couldn't recover. That's 80 properties. I mean, that's
Lord.
Millions and millions,
and you're done forever because like if you put all your money into real estate, it's like, oh, well, where's your money? How are you going to retire, bro? Where's your passive income, bro? It's like, it's just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, this has been really enlightening. I mean, we can do some comments.
Sure.
I mean, do you have any last like tidbits to say before we dive into the comments?
Yeah. I'd say check out HUD Home Store. There haven't been a lot of options available from the pandemic because when things were shut down, there weren't any foreclosures or evictions for a little bit, but it's starting to pick up. I would recommend that as your starting point. If you can't do that, I would recommend finding someone that's in real estate and talking about providing cash and starting an LLC with them. And that'll give you a way to go to the bank. And I would also say that beware of contractors and make sure you have everything in writing because you can get taken advantage of pretty easily. It still happens to me. And I've been doing this for years and years. So,
do you have a course, bro?
No.
Hey, well, if you did, I would definitely get an affiliate link to that. I'm just screwing around. All right, let's do some comments. Let's see if there's any insightful ones. Well, Graham did bought his first two properties at the bottom of the real estate bust in 2012 for $80,000 and $120,000. With that bottom cost of rent really makes it work. Not now. That makes sense to me. I mean, if
Yeah.
you buy if there's a crash and you're buying scooping up properties, you can make it work. But that's a very
If you have cash
opportune
on
problem.
hand.
And yeah, you have to have tons of cash. Like all these broke people are signing up for these freaking real estate courses. It's like you clown. The first repair that you got to make, you're going to go under and you're going to be in debt like a loser. So, what? Debt isn't always pretty much free? Who would have thought? Yeah, man. Like my mortgage, 2.89%. That's ridiculous. Now it's like 7% or something like that. In 5 years, when this bubble deflates, there will be deals. What do you think? You think we're in a bubble?
Yeah, it's already deflating some. I don't think it'll take 5 years. Because when the interest rates go up, I mean, think about what that does. You can't purchase as much unless you have cash.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not a real estate expert, but I compared what it would cost me to buy my house now if I just bought this house again right now versus if I bought the house when I bought the house. And basically, it's almost double the cost because now the property value is more and the interest rates are massively higher. So I just cannot see how people can afford to buy a freaking house now. And there's got to be something that gives. And honestly, I think it's going to be real estate prices. How fast that happens, I don't freaking know.
Yeah, no one does. That's why you always buy undervalued and don't worry about it.
So we got some more troll comments. So apparently, what do you think? Do you think tattooed chef or real estate would be a better investment?
Well, you can't lose it all with Well, I mean, all you can do is lose it all with tattooed chef, but I'll stick to real estate.
Yeah, honestly, like if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably go with tattooed chef. Not even joking. Real estate investors are experts at sketchy tax deductions. It is a little funny. Like, I wonder what people are doing when they're not going to a tax professional. Because obviously, like when a CPA firm prepares your taxes, I mean, they're going to ask, like, what's this expense? What's this? Is this an expense or is this a capital asset? And they kind of like, really dig into the details. I always wonder what people are really up to if they're doing their own Schedule E, preparing their own rental properties. Probably a bunch of sketchy stuff.
Well, with my software, I actually modified the software so that it does the Schedule E, and all of my investors' accountants love me because it just lines up. It's in the order, and it's just so perfect. I've got the capital expenses and everything.
Man, that's actually really helpful because, like I said, if you're a rental investor and you just plop like receipts this high, and you want a tax preparer to look at it, it's going to cost you a lot of money. Because like to really do your due diligence, you got to look through all those receipts, Yeah. But if you like summarize it and it's legit, obviously, it saves you a ton of time. And if you can tie it to the Schedule E, like you said you do, that's like amazing. Because like I mean, I've done taxes for some people. They're like, here's my insurance, here's this, here's that, and they line it up for you, and it takes like almost no time at all. And then you can maybe ask a question or two if there's a big expense. But there's other people that are like, oh, here's my receipt. And then it's just a disaster. Let's see. See any comments? Is this your girlfriend? Yeah, guaranteed that's a dude, by the way. Let's see. Are there any comments about real estate? What you clowns are talking about tattooed chef? What do you think about this? Lumber has actually dropped as far as sales prices to distributors. So Home Depot and Lowe's and others simply aren't lowering their prices and raking massive profit margins.
Okay, first of all, I wouldn't recommend getting lumber at Home Depot or Lowe's. I would recommend an accredited lumber buyer. Right here, we have a local company called Short and Palk. They have basically they're part of a co-op where they buy lower. It's cheaper and it's better quality. Now, I disagree about they simply aren't lowering their prices. That's ridiculous. Why would, if they could make more money by lowering their prices and selling more, then they would obviously do that. We also have a few things going on, there's still lumber tariffs with Canada. They were lowered from 19 to I think it's 14%, but that's still pretty high, which is a disincentive for new construction, obviously.
There you go, dear Meisters. Owned. Let's see. Even Casey Sarin poster boy followed Robert Kiyosaki to 8 foreclosures. Do you know who that is? Casey Sarin?
I don't.
Probably some scammer.
Let me check. That sounds familiar.
Just buy rental properties, bro. It's easy. American blogger, Uzbekistan-born American blogger, mortgage broker, and real estate investor. He's a poster child for everything that went wrong in the real estate boom. That's what I want to be known as somebody that's just like the pinnacle of stupidity during a.
You know what? I wonder if he followed Kiyosaki's advice and bought Bitcoin at the top. That would be perfect.
Yeah, I mean, what is going on with that, man? Like, Robert Kiyosaki, like, I thought he was like an okay dude, you know, like he had this little book. And then all of a sudden he starts talking about gold, and then he starts talking about crypto, and it's just like, dude, what happened to real estate, bro? Why do you think he's moved away from real estate?
Well, I'd say he's in the business of marketing himself more than he is than giving serious financial advice. Because let's face it, serious financial advice where it takes time, it takes decades, and you slowly build your wealth and you live below your means. Well, that's just not as exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, he's obviously a massive scammer now. He kind of disgusts me, but whatever. What can you do? He's going to get a lot of views and money and subscribers. So this guy was like, when the person was calling you, whoever that was, it's dark in here. Where's my bulb? My toilet. It won't flush. Let's see. Best tips for making a smart purchase on a primary residence, not an investment. Yeah, this might not be a bad question for you to answer.
This is a great question. I would say new construction should be avoided. You're going to have a huge markup. I would say look for a house that has some flaws, because unfortunately these reality shows about renovations and flipping houses have ruined people's expectations. There was one property I was trying to sell someone as a primary residence. It was great school zone. It was a 5-bedroom, 2.5 bath. It was on the market for $42,000. The roof was less than 3 years old. The HVAC was new. It was probably market value $230,000, but they didn't want to buy it because the water heater was old. And I was like, well, just who cares? That's $800, after labor. Like, you're saving $180,000 here. Like, this is a big deal. Who cares about $800 expense? But like, people are that ticky about moving in that you're better off buying a used home, even if it needs a little bit of work. You're going to save tens of thousands of dollars doing that. My advice is look for water damage, check the age of the roof, and check the age of the air conditioning unit. Your air conditioning unit, you should get about 15 years from.
Yeah, and I remember I was looking for properties. Like, I bought in June of 2020, and I'm actually a dummy. I bought new construction, but when I was looking around, it seemed like even like equivalent houses were more expensive than the one I was looking at here, than the one I actually bought. So it was just kind of a weird time back then, but I totally see your point of like, new construction probably does have a massive markup. It's like buying a new car because everything's new, that's a premium you have to pay. But yeah, if you just have to fix a boiler or something, I mean, it may not be that bad of a deal to just buy that one. Let's see. What do you think about iBuyer? What's that? Don't they make real estate more liquid? What's an iBuyer?
He's talking about Zillow and Redfin, these companies that that allow you to sell your properties online. Well, this is an interesting subject. He's asking if it's more liquid, but you still have to have the cash. Someone has to have the cash, and someone has to make the offer. I think this is personally a fad because there's so many laws in place that haven't really been tried in the courts about, like, for instance, in the state of Georgia, you have to have an attorney and a real estate at every property closing. They haven't really tried. Also, these companies that offer these services tend to be massively unprofitable. They tend to lose money. I don't know if you saw the Zillow disaster, but Zillow one day they announced that they had been lying in their flipping home program, that they weren't losing $60,000 a home; they were actually losing about $130,000 a home. Then they fired a third of their staff, and the stock crashed because, well, let's face it, it's hard to flip homes, especially when you have construction costs. And I was wondering, like, how are they doing this without being on the site to manage the contractors? The answer is they weren't.
Yeah, those stocks are a freaking disaster. I remember like looking at the moon. It's like, okay, well, the property market's doing amazing right now. So of course all these like, clownish real estate stocks are going up, but what's going to happen eventually when people come to their senses or interest rates go up? So I stayed away from that crap. How does one find a reliable tax person to go overcome tax time? Trying to get my taxes in order. Well, just Google CPA near me and find a reputable local CPA firm. And there you go.
And don't wait until spring.
Many fundamental differences between real estate and stocks. It is reason why most average Joes walking around are millionaires through real estate and not stocks. I mean, we're not saying you can't become a millionaire through real estate, but number one, what's your definition of millionaire? And number two, there's a lot more pitfalls than people imagine. Oh, it's easy, bro. Just buy real estate, bro. And honestly, like, I think an average Joe can become a millionaire through stocks. Personally, if you max your tax advantage accounts or try to, and don't buy stupid clown stocks, buy an index. So that's just my opinion. Let's see. Airbnbs are so widespread. Oh, yeah. Can you briefly comment on Airbnb investing? Like, is that a good idea? What are your thoughts?
It's terrible. The market is flooded. Like what they're saying, literally, there are more Airbnbs available than there are rental properties available because people see it as a get-rich-quick scheme. I really do hope it does crash because what he's saying is true. There's a bunch of people that are desperately trying to move, but there's nowhere available because there's so many Airbnbs. You've got a similar problem with Furnished Finder. During the pandemic, there were a lot of traveling nurses going to certain hospitals, but now that there's not a pandemic, the demand's dropped off. So people had these furnished units that they were renting for traveling nurses for well above market value, but now they're just sitting there empty as well. It's kind of like Airbnb, except for it's like with a lease.
So does that bode well or bad for Airbnb stock? If everybody was using the program, huh?
Are they even profitable?
I don't think so. I mean, I can pull it up real quick. I doubt it. But yeah, it seems to me if Airbnbs are just blowing up everywhere and it's a get-rich-quick scheme, the company that's fundamentally associated with that is probably going to get clapped. Let's see the most recent quarter. Oh, they're diluting like crazy. What a shock. So they've been profitable a couple quarters, but they've also had massive losses probably because of the pandemic. So it's kind of like all over the place. So I don't know. I don't even know what to say about this stock. It's like everywhere. Yeah, I'm not touching that one. But all right, man, you got any last comments? I think we're at our hour. We're going to cut it off.
I guess that's it.
Cool. Thanks for coming on. Your insight was very valuable because I wanted to talk to somebody that actually like does this and understands it and isn't a freaking scammer. Because to me, it just never made sense. Oh, just buy real estate. It's easy, bro. Because every time I hear that, it's obviously not going to be easy and it's probably going to be a freaking disaster. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. That was good stuff.
Oh, yeah. Glad to be here.
And we'll do a Lufufu outro because why not?
Holy smokers, folks.
Strong man, personal finance.
Ain't no dang jokers. Alrighty, folks, big video. So in this video, I want to address the last time I was ever bullied in life. The last time I was ever bullied in life. The last time I was ever bullied in life. The last time I was ever bullied in life.
Howdy there, folks.
You're spending more of our money on those stocks. I'm gonna beat your ass. I'm gonna beat your ass.
Boy, did I get brutalized today.